Good morning again. This is Alfredo Aranda, and today we are going to talk about Counterpoint second species. We're gonna do a little bit of review of what is it that we did on the first species, and then we're gonna add the second species. So we're using the Counterpoint and Harmony for Composers book. And a little bit of review. I'm gonna go to a finale document. We're gonna do a first species counterpoint, and then we're gonna work on the rules for the second species. So, just as a review, we're gonna write a cantus firmus. We're gonna be in the key of C. Remember, the first note needs to be a C, and the last note needs to be another C. Second to the last note needs to be one of the five chord notes. In this case, I'm gonna write a B. And then in between anything, uh, I'm just gonna have a gradual melody and then up, down, and then a leap, and then back again. Um, it's like a composition. Whatever someone composes, you have to make something good out of that. And this is what we're gonna do today. We're gonna mark the ending right here, and we are going to in the first measure. Remember, we can only do notes that belong to the one chord. In this case, is C, E, or G. Anything is fine. And remember, the intervals that we can do are the first, the third, the fifth, the sixth, and the eighth. Those are the ones that we can do, and the ones that we cannot do. I'm gonna say a no right here. Are the I'm gonna write a yes on this one. There you go. And then the no intervals are the second, fourth, and seven. Okay, these are the ones that you can't do. But then there was some that there was a fourth that we could do, and we had to make it a conditional interval, and we're gonna call it a conditional interval. Only if it resolves in a certain way, then we can do a certain fourth, and we're gonna call it a conditional intervals. Okay, and these conditional intervals are the augmented fourth, and that if it resolves to a sixth, and that can only be using the F and the B. There is no other augmented fourth unless we alter the sound of the scale, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do that later, and we're going to see that that actually works. There is actually three that you can do conditional intervals. There is another one, a second. The second only when the F and the G resolve to a the E and the oops, the E and A, C. And I'm gonna explain that right now. I'm gonna lower this a little more so you guys can see better. Okay, and there is another conditional, which is the seventh, only, the same thing when the F or the G and the F, I'm writing it this way because the G needs to be in the bottom and the F, so this makes a seventh and resolves to the C and the E. Okay, and I'm gonna write some of this. So I'm kind of telling you not to do seconds, fourths, and sevenths, and then again I'm telling you that you can. But I call this conditional intervals. You may not hear this anywhere else, but I just named them that way right now. So we're gonna start with the interval of a fifth. You can start with anything you want. Then remember, if you go up, C, D, you can go down. That's the preferred movement. Since I went up again, C, D, E, then I'm gonna still coming down, and then it goes down. The E goes back down, then I'm gonna go up, because if I do go down, it's bad. I'm gonna show you. The D, that makes parallel octaves. So I'm gonna move it in contrary motion, and then I'm gonna go down again. Okay, I'm gonna write something right here. Let me see. I'm gonna make this a normal cantus firmus or a normal counterpoint, and then I'm gonna add the other intervals in different exercises, so you see how I use them. Then I'm gonna write a B right here to make the augmented fourth that I've been telling you about. Approaching the augmented fourth or the diminished fifth in any way is good. It's not bad. It doesn't have to be gradual like the octaves and the fifths, which are the most delicate intervals to approach. But the thirds, the sixths, the augmented fourth, and the diminished fifths, you don't really have to approach them gradually. You may, but you don't have to, and it still sound good. But once you are there with the augmented fourth, then you need to resolve them. The F goes to the E, and the B goes to the C. Okay, and to finish the exercise, we're gonna have from a B to a D, that makes a third, and then we need to finish with an octave. So this is the I'm gonna write the intervals right here, and this is a fifth, and this is an octave, and this is, oops, it was not an octave. From D to F it was a third, and then one octave, and then another third, and then a sixth, and then a D augmented fourth, and then the sixth, the third, and then finally the octave. So right now we didn't have any parallel octaves, we use contrary motion. When the melody went up, it gradually came down, and when it went down, the other counter melody went up. And even though we had a leap right here, we went contrary motion. We could have done anything actually. What we try to practice in the counterpoint is not making so many leaps, because that's really easy. You can just go into a third or a sixth, and that's really easy. But actually trying to have the gradual melodies and still sound good, that is our goal to learn. Once you make your arrangements, you may do many things. You may choose to or may choose not to, depending on what you want to do. All right, and then we went from G to F, and then we had a B. We could have used a D and still make it good, because it was like two consecutive sixths, and then another one, but I chose to have an augmented fourth right here. And then it went on contrary motion on both voices, and finally we ended on the octave. And this sounds actually pretty good. I'm going to copy this same cantus firmus right here. I want to put it right here. But I'm going to change the top voice. I'm going to start with other notes, because I want you to see different possibilities. And then I want to start by adding, I'm going to write a second right here. And then I'm going to, right here. And then this is going to go to a C. All right. And the rest of it is going to be almost the same. So I'm going to start here with an octave. So this is an octave, and then I'm going to go down, because this first cantus firmus melody went up. So I'm going to go down. And then it kept on going up. I could go down, but if I do go down like this creates a fourth, which we cannot use. The only one that we can use is the augmented fourth, and this is a perfect fourth. So we're not going to do that. We're going to go up. We're going to go to in a parallel motion, like both notes are going to go up in the same gradual direction. D to E, B to C, and this makes another six. So I am going to continue with this going up in contrary motion, and then I'm going to go down to a third. You see, on this one I jumped from D to G, and then from D to B. And when you approach a third, like I did right here, it's really not a big deal if you jump to it, because it's a very consonant, very sweet interval. It's just like approaching a very nice person. You know, you rarely can rarely do anything too bad, because they're like always happy or sweet. In this case, this interval, you can do anything with it. And then I wrote a second just to illustrate this conditional intervals, and I will be showing them in future videos. So I made a second to a sixth, and then this last one, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna instead of writing a D, I'm gonna write a G. Oops. I think I changed it. All right, I'm gonna change it back to a V, the way it was. And then I have to use the different layers. I'm gonna write a G right here and then finish with another C right here. So the intervals in this case are the following. Move this right here. And these are the octave, a sixth, the octave again, a third, a second. Remember, why do I use these two notes with which I can get a major second and it doesn't work for the other major seconds? Because these two notes belong to the 5/7 chord. And you may use these two notes. The F goes to the E and the C goes to the C. I mean, the G goes to the C. I mean, if you were allowed to repeat, which in Counterpoint you should not do right now, and later you will see that you may do a lot of repetitions, but in this case we're trying not to. So that is why you can use this interval of a second, and then a sixth, and then another sixth, and then we go to an eighth, an octave. And we're gonna play these two exercises, and you'll see how nice they both sound. It's the exact same melody, and we can just do it really nice. Great. You see how this second sounded really good because it resolved into the sixth, and that's why these are called conditional intervals. And now we're going to go to the second species. I'm gonna just do an explanation right here. I'm gonna go straight to the second species page, which is, if you are using the book, go to page, let me see, right here. It's on page 28. And what you have now is two notes against one note. And this is the cantus firmus, or the melody. And you may have the melody on the top or the bottom. And if you do have on the top, remember, you see that the stems going down there on the left side, and if they go up, they go on the top. And now let's go straight to the rules. The first thing that you need to know is that you have two notes instead of one. That's the first thing. And it's called the second species. You always have two notes against one note. The first one is strong, will always be strong, and the second one is weak. And this is a very important interval. This one needs to be consonant or conditional interval resolved in the proper way. Okay, the strong interval should always be consonant or conditional. The second one may be dissonant or consonant, but if it's dissonant, it may only appear in two ways. It could be a passing note, descending in this case, or ascending passing note. What it really means that it needs to be gradual, going from a consonant or conditional interval like you see right here, going to another consonant or conditional interval that resolves. And if this interval is dissonant, then it needs to be gradual, going up or down. And this one is a descending passing note. It could be ascending, and it could also be a neighbor, a lower neighbor or an upper neighbor. If it's a consonant interval, it may jump. It doesn't have to be gradual. Okay, like on this one, it's a descending passing note. On this other sample, it's an ascending passing note. On this other one, it's an upper neighbor. On this other one, is a lower neighbor. And the same thing goes with the parallel fifths and octaves. And another thing that I like to mention, when you have a 6 on the first beat, and then you have a fifth, and it's gradual, this fifth does not really belong to the function, because this chord, if we were to have a chord, even though we only have 2 notes, there's a chord right there. This is the A and the C, which can only be 2 chords, the A minor chord or the F chord. But since we don't have the F, we're just gonna call it the an A minor chord. So the G has nothing to do with the A minor chord. So this is a passing note which has no chord value. In this other one, it's an ascending fourth, a lower neighbor. I'm just giving you some samples. And this, the fourth is the one interval that you may use on the second beat, because it's actually part of the chord. So this one makes the F chord, F, A, D. And you may hear sometimes that the fourth may not be used unless it's gradual by step. I said no, because it's part of the chord. And in this case, it may be used. And also right here, it's a fourth. It's a chord, it's the F chord again, because F, A, C chord, even though you don't have the A. And then right here, it's just another chord. Especially at the ending is very useful, because you have the G, B, D chord that goes into the C chord. The augmented fourth needs to resolve properly. If you have an augmented fourth on the first beat, the second note needs to be a note that belongs to the 5 chord. Remember, you may not repeat notes, so in this case, if you have a F and a B, the second note, if it is not a gradual note, it needs to be a G or a D. Like in this case, I have a D. And then it resolves the F to the E and the B to the C. And you may have the augmented chord on the second beat. But if you do that, the first beat also needs to be one of the other note needs to be one of the 5, 7 chord notes. And right here you see you have a second, and then you add the B, which is a fourth. And that's why I tell you that this second may resolve even without the use of this other note that makes it the augmented fourth. And then you may resolve on the first beat of the next measure or the second beat of the next measure. Like on this other sample, we have a diminished fifth, and the other note was a D, which is part of the 5/7 chord. And you see, all these samples are like that. And this other one, you have a G and a B, and then the F. This whole measure makes it a a 5/7 chord resolved into a 1 chord. And all right, the octaves and the fifths are prohibited, and they may be, if you have an octave in the first or in the strong part of the measure, and then you have another octave on the strong part of the measure in the next measure, these are called parallel octaves, and you may not use them. And if you have them on the second measure and or the second part of the measure, they're also parallel octaves. And if you have one in the second part and the other one in the first part of the measure, they're also bad. Same thing happens with the fifths. However, there are some fifths that you may use in octaves. When you have an octave in the first part of the measure and the other one in the second part of the measure, then you may use them. They're like too far apart and they do not affect each other. Same thing happens with the fifth. Remember, we're talking about the perfect fifth, not the diminished fifth. If you have a fifth that does not belong to the function, like in this case AC, which is the A minor, and then you have a fifth that does belong to the function, like a D minor, a DFA, then this is something that you may use and have two consecutive fifths, and it will not affect the sound. So this is sample of a second SPECIE counterpoint, and you may try your own at home. And so for now, if you want to leave you right here, and remember you can do with the counterpoint. The counterpoint can be on the top as well. The top as well. Okay, so this is the end for now, and I hope you do your own counterpoint, second SPECIE, first SPECIE. Remember, practice them a lot. I recommend that you do the same exercises that I recommended on the other video on different clefs and in different keys if you like to. For now, it's probably best not to, just so you get very good at writing counterpoints, and then you try the other keys. So this is the end of the lesson, and I hope you had a good time. And remember, if you'd like to get the book, you may get it at the edmusica.com, and you may have a copy so you can practice at home with it. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.